Yeah, yeah. Yeah, shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds like scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like towers. Ride the wave to fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle, money moves so gritty. Cashing tickets every Friday, life looking pretty. Ride the wave, feel the rush, hit your dame. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit banging, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets.
On a suddenly not so casual Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve in November, it is a special edition CFB Knowledge for College, Week 14, looking ahead to Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving the day after, Black Friday, and of course Saturday. Saturdays are for Sunday. We got a ton of plays. Get in the chat, people. I hope you guys are enjoying your Thanksgiving Eve. It is the Shark and the Gun right here live. Shark and Water Station X and YouTube. GunzPicks. What's going on, brother?
How am I doing in November is the question. I'm almost to 40 units. That's right, 40 units in November. I posted my record from Pickett, and I am going to continue to dominate. I'm on a 19-6 run. That's right, 19-6 run in college football. I am absolutely electric, and I can't wait to give you the 6-pack of winners. Of course, Shark will have his 7 plays today, 13 plays. Let's dominate. Last week of the season, when the data is big, we unload the clip. Let's go, Shark. Give them the plays that pay the bills.
Speaking of unloading the clip, we're going Black Friday. We know people are going to be spending money buying all sorts of artillery across the merchandise industry, but the Gun is opening up the broadcast in the MAC, a very unique conference. Low-level football, greasefire football, maybe not so greasefire this year. Bowling Green at -2.5.
Yeah, if you ask Santa Claus, he's a fan of the MAC, and he loves this game right now. We have Miami, Ohio, and Bowling Green facing each other in Bowling Green, Ohio. 12 p.m. is the kick. When you look at Miami, Ohio, they're on a 6-game winning streak, 6-1 straight up in the conference as well, with a plus 6-point differential and plus 49 net yard average. And you have Bowling Green on a 5-game winning streak themselves, and they're 6-1 in the conference as well, with a plus 8-point differential and plus 53 net yard average. And what is Miami, Ohio's biggest weakness this season? It's their performance on the road. They're 2-3 straight up in ATS on the road this season, including a non-cover versus Ball State and a loss to Toledo in conference. They have a -2-point differential, -43 net yard average on the road this season, but Bowling Green has performed well versus conference opponents this season. They're 6-1 straight up with a plus 13-point differential and a plus 82 net yard average versus conference opponents. Home team in this matchup, and that is key on this one, is 4-0 ATS, and this is the first time Bowling Green has been favored since 2016 in this matchup. That gives you a high indicator. We're looking at a Bowling Green spot here, and also the revenge factor here for Bowling Green, because Miami, Ohio beat Bowling Green 27-0 last season, and Bowling Green was an 8-point road dog in this situation. Now you see them as a short favorite at home. This has implications on the line. This game has MAC championship implications, for that matter, tied to it. And I think the home team has the edge here with Bowling Green. Give me Bowling Green on this spot here. And I got him at -2.5. This team is going to win by margin. Bowling Green all the way, -2.5 as the play.
Yeah, as of a couple of years ago, there's no way I would have ever foreseen Bowling Green winning the MAC. Do you guys remember, go back about 4 years, right around the COVID period, Akron and Bowling Green could barely win a game. My, how things have changed, and the Gun on
Chuck,
Bowling Green.
I was capping first halves on Akron with Bowling Green. I call it the toilet bowl.
It's the fascination and the quick flip to cash quick fast in college football. My first play, also Black Friday, going 12 noon in Greenville, South Carolina, a team we have bet numerous times this year. To my surprise, when I was capping stuff in the summer in the futures market, I didn't entirely see myself betting games involving ECU this much. But here we are, week 14 to close the season, taking the over in this game at 55.5. And this is really just a nice statistical buy low on both points. Navy comes into this game 0-3 versus the over. Last three. Real dud game at Rice, went way under. Kind of a funky game at USF, 28-7. The game had 721 total yards, 4+ territory turnovers, 2 downs, just a total outlier, and a shutout last week against Tulane, 35-0. So a great buy low on Navy, and really a great sustained buy on ECU. ECU did start the season 0-3 versus the home over with quarterback Jake Garcia, transfer from Miami. They are 2-0 versus the home over with redshirt soft Caton Hauser. And this is really a stylistic gap. And if you really start to go through those overs, 56-34 against Temple, 49-14 against FAU. They're scoring the ball at an alarming rate. And if you go to this matchup, third straight year these teams have played, two consecutive unders. 2 years ago, 23-20. Last year, very marquee under 30.5, 10-0. And truthfully, the line functionality here is fantastic. Books had that game downgraded last year to a significant under, and now they're moving it up from 30.5 to 56.5. I had this game to potentially reach 75 or 80 points. Buy it, live it, love it, and dominate it. An opportunity on Black Friday to cash. Staying on Black Friday, we got 4 plays on Black Friday. Going back to the gun, 3:30. Last week, Liberty, maybe they heard me call them a horrible team on this show. They certainly came out inspired, I think bizarrely, and did hammer Western Kentucky. Now they go on the road to Sam Houston, barely favored. The gun heard me last week. He's equally as annoyed. I might tail this play. GunzPicks. Sam Houston plus 3.5 early week, now plus 2.5.
Now put yourself in perspective here. Now put yourself into a mall where you have to pull out your credit card. How about you just bet on Sam Houston State so you could pull out a billfold that your bookie just gave you? Let's talk about this game with Liberty, with Sam Houston State in Elior Bowers Stadium in Huntsville, Texas. That's where this game is going to be kicking off. So Liberty has to travel here, and Liberty is 8-2 on the year with a plus 8-point differential, plus 101 net yard average. And Sam Houston State is 8-3 on the year, off a loss, by the way, plus 3-point differential and plus 36 net yard average. And Sam Houston State's strength all season long has been their defense. They're 19th in opposing scoring, giving up 20.2 points per game, 20th in opposing yards per game, 16th in opposing yards per play, 12th in opposing red zone scoring percentage as well. And what does Liberty want to do in this game? They want to run the ball. They are 6th in rush play percentage, 5th in rushing yards per carry, and 12th and 2nd in rush yards per game. And Sam Houston State has done well against the run all season long, holding their opponents to 3.8 yards per game. That is ranked 35th in the country, and holding opponents to 2.8 yards per carry at home. So they get better at home than they do on the road. And what does Sam Houston State want to do? They're a run-oriented offense as well. They average 4.7 yards per carry at home, 196 yards per game. And then you got to look at Liberty rush defense. They're ranked 63rd in opposing yards per carry, 71st in rushing yards per game. So they are a weaker defense than Sam Houston against the run. These teams met last season. Liberty beat Sam Houston State 21-16. And guess what? Sam Houston State was a 21-point home a road dog in that situation. And now Sam Houston State is sitting here on a short leash at home. 3 points, 3.5 points. I'm seeing it drop to 2.5 before we are actually, when we're recording this episode now. And look at Liberty. Liberty plays to the level of their competition all season. They are 1-3 ATS on the road this season, missing the cover by 13.8 points per game. And Liberty is coming off a big win versus Western Kentucky. Highs of highs beating this team. So can they muster the strength against this Sam Houston State team? I don't think so, because Sam Houston State has revenge. They played a close game, 21-16 last season, and they were a huge dog. Now Sam Houston State's got them right where they want them, at home, short dog. They're going to win this game outright. I know it's 2.5 right now. I got 3.5 for a little bit of insurance. However, you might as well take them out on the money line if you can't get 3. So give me Sam Houston plus 3.5 as the play.
Yeah, speaking of going the opposite direction from last week, I'm jumping on the train of Texas State. Obviously, last week, Guns had Texas State, and they lost outright as a minus 22.5 favorite, which is truly just mind-blowing within this calendar in this numerical dispersion. But I think it's a great spot to stay the course with Texas State. Texas State has bounced back all year. They are 2-0 ATS last two off a non-cover with this quarterback, Jordan McLeod, who did start for JMU last year. He's been on, I believe, 4 FBS teams in the last 5 years, but he's a very representative quarterback. And truthfully,
Sun Belt Player of the Year. He's a Sun Belt Player of the Year.
Correct. And he was on Tulsa, Arizona. I believe this is his 4th team over the last 5 years. But regardless, maybe the movement doesn't necessarily indicate how much talent this guy actually has, because you would think he would be staying with the same team if he was that good. But neither here nor there. The game last week was just an outlier. And when you see Texas State play poor football this year, it's very much centered on a cluster of turnovers. 4 last week to really kind of gift wrap the game to Georgia State. And I was saying to Guns off the air, we're going to do the NFL show actually later tonight, pre-record for you guys on Sunday. But slight look ahead to what we like this week. We like the Bengals. You guys have followed the Bengals. The Bengals have lost tight games all year. When I was looking at Texas State earlier, I actually was kind of blown away how similar Cincinnati in the Pro League is to Texas State in the FBS ranks. Texas State has 5 FBS wins this year by an average of 33.6 points per game. So when they win, they hammer teams. 5 FBS losses by an average of only 5.6 points per game. So the bottom line is when they win, they blow you out. They've lost almost every single tight game, including a 1-point game to Sam Houston at Energy Stadium early season. And this is really where you want to statistically buy low on the entire campaign for Texas State. And this is also just a great spot to fade South Alabama. We've noted this on this show for a period of time now. South Alabama really peaked a couple seasons ago. This is definitely not at their highest level of quality here. And they have performed reasonably well this year at home, but these games at home have been not representative of much at all. If you guys remember a Week 3 Thursday night football game against FCS Northwestern State, they did hammer them 87-10. I believe it was the biggest margin of any game played in FBS football this year. Key point there, 36.5 favorite. 2 other home blowouts against Troy and ULM, both as a significant favorite. This is the first time all year that South Alabama is a home underdog. It's a revenge game from last year. And I think interestingly enough, these teams do play every year. 6 consecutive home wins and covers in this matchup. This is the first time the road team has had strength numerically in this matchup in 7 years. And as I mentioned, great spot to buy Texas State in this spot and fade South Alabama. Let's cash this ticket on a beautiful Friday. It will be first collaboration of this show, Week 14, segueing to Saturday. Saturdays are for sending it. I never thought I'd be saying this. Old Reliable is in play again in the SEC. And I'll throw it to the gun for opening remarks. I have more. Vanderbilt at home, plus 11.
In Diego, we trust, and we have another opportunity to go hit Vanderbilt as a double-digit dog at home, and they're playing at First Bank Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. They may tear their field goal post again against this Tennessee Vol team. They're off back-to-back losses. Vandy is. They're 6-5 on the year with a plus 5 point differential, minus 19 net yard average. And then you have Tennessee 92 on the year with playoff implications on the line in this game, but they have a plus 24 point differential and a plus 172 net yard average on the year. And Tennessee has done well at home. However, on the road, different story. They're 1-2 straight up in ATS on the road, plus 3 point differential, minus 38 net yard average. This team regresses when they have to travel outside their stadium. And then Vandy has excelled at home this season. 4-2 straight up in ATS with a plus 9 point differential, plus 42 net yard average. You say, like, well, they played weak competition. Nah. They played Bama, Texas, Ball State, South Carolina, and Virginia Tech. 3 of those teams are still in the playoff hunt, by the way. And then you have Vandy has done well as a dog on in the dog roll versus conference opponents. They're 6-1 ATS in those spots with 3 outright wins. And then Vandy 5-0 ATS, a double-digit dog this season. This team continues to show up when people doubt them. Especially the books for that matter. These teams met last season, Tennessee winning the game 48-24, where Tennessee was a 27 4-point home favorite in that spot. Now the line is shorter for a reason. Vandy has just played their best ball in the situation. Double-digit dog versus a ranked opponent, and Tennessee has a lot of pressure on them. I mean, you're talking about a Tennessee team that has never been in this position before with playoff implications of the line. I don't trust Heupel. I don't trust Tennessee. I trust Vandy because Vandy will unload the clip. No pun intended on that one. Give me Vandy on this one, plus 11 as the play.
I think pun could be intended here because I think we really do need to absolutely hammer this spot.
We may need to take this team outright. We have to take them outright, right?
I mean, they have outright wins this year at plus 1,000 versus Bama, plus 380 versus Va Tech, plus 380 again versus, I believe, Kentucky. This team is just a great buy low the entire campaign. Well coached, as we've mentioned numerous times. Alumnus about 20 years ago, a fullback. If you want energy in a locker room, go straight to the fullback. This guy can motivate and he cares. And as Guns mentioned,
Eli Drake wins.
And this is, as you mentioned, this is not where you want to buy Tennessee on the road. But I think even more importantly, I found this to be kind of bizarre. Tennessee's only played 3 road games this year versus 7 at home. So very little sample on the road. They've been quite poor. 1-2 ATS road in conference, and they have played down significantly every single time in conference. They're laying double digits. And I got to be honest, I think it's the coach. I think it's Josh Heupel. Obviously, I believe Heisman winner with Oklahoma back in the 90s. Correct me if I'm wrong. He won a national title, I think. Heisman national title, something like that.
You might be correct. I have to look that up. I don't know.
Either way, I think it's an interesting conversation because I remember watching him, I think, win a national title when I was like 10 years old. And as a kid, you automatically think, okay, this guy just led his team to a national championship. He must be a great leader. I got to be honest. Listening to Heupel talk, even just kind of looking at the guy, he doesn't inspire confidence in me. I think he's a softer personality. He's not really, like, as we always say, the Dan Campbell big dog energy. And I think that really translates to this group who's just not traveling well on the road at all. And, you know, as you said, Guns, Tennessee just shows out in every spot this season. And I think even more importantly, this is an in-state rivalry game. Knoxville versus Nashville here within Tennessee. And Tennessee has dominated this matchup last 5. 5-0 straight up last 5. Average win margin by 29.4 points per game. And this is an incredibly short number. The last number was minus 27.5. This drops to 12.5. And per line functionality here in a data abundant matchup, I have this game to be a 1-point game against the money line either way. If Tennessee wins, they win tight. Vanderbilt could win this game. We love this spot. First collaboration of this week 14. Vanderbilt plus 11 or 11.5, depending on what line you got. Staying in the SEC here, going back to the gun. South Carolina actually traveling out of conference here to close their season to Clemson. Clemson, obviously an interesting conversation this whole year. Started out looking terrible in the opener against Georgia. Have had some moments along the way where it looked like they turned a corner. But I think ultimately within this matchup, South Carolina has turned a much more sustained corner over the course of this season. Far, far better than people had expected in the preseason. And truthfully, probably a must-win, if not high urgency spot here for South Carolina to prove themselves for the CFB playoff. Guns, I know you've noticed all of that. I will throw it to you. An official South Carolina plus 2.5.
So I had to look up Josh Heupel. I just want to bring up this stat. AP Player of the Year. Undefeated season, won the national championship in 2000. However, he didn't win the Heisman. He was the runner-up in the Heisman in that, but still had a terrific year. But I digress here because we are here to talk about a in-state rivalry that is really not that much known. We have South Carolina versus Clemson, and this is a big game. Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina. They're going to be rubbing the rock and running down the hill. Of course, Dabo Sweeney is going to probably take all the glory from his team. But Clemson is 9-2 on the year with a plus 16-point differential, plus 119 net yard average. However, They're playing a South Carolina team that is absolutely thumping. 5-game winning streak with a plus 15-point differential and a plus 104 net yard average on the year. And South Carolina has really, not a lot of college teams perform well on the road. This team does. They're 3-1 straight up, 4-0 ATS on the road this season with a plus 18-point differential, plus 68 net yard average. Only road loss this season was a 2-point loss to Alabama. And if you watch that game, South Carolina had full control for 3 quarters and just let them off the hook late in that game. And South Carolina's defense has been their strength all season long. They have they're 13th in opposing scoring, 12th in opposing yards per game, 7th in opposing yards per play, 22nd in opposing third down percentage as well. And South Carolina has accomplished this with the 7th toughest schedule in the country. This is not an anomaly here, folks. This is a very good Gamecocks team. And then you look at Clemson, more pass-oriented. They're 35th in pass play percentage, 17th in passing attempts per game, and 18th in the country in passing yards per game. But South Carolina defense has been pretty efficient. They're 23rd in pass completion percentage against opponents, 30th in opposing yards per play, 34th in opposing yards per game, and they're 3rd in QB sack percentage. And the reason why that success is because they get to the quarterback and they put pressure on him. And that is a detriment to Cade Klubnik that really doesn't have any mobility outside the pocket. Then you have Clemson, just reluctant this season with a weak schedule. Then South Carolina, they face the 31st toughest schedule. And like I said, South Carolina has faced the 7th and has better statistics than Clemson. And Clemson also did not do well when they have to play a step up in class. And what I mean by that is a ranked opponent, for that matter. Their toughest opponent this season was Georgia. They lost 34-3 in that game, only putting up 188 yards of total offense, and they had a minus 259 net yard average in that game. And of course, we take advantage of this. Another pound of flesh game, revenge type of angle here. South Carolina lost to Clemson 16-7 last season as 7.5 point road 7.5 point home dogs in this situation. And now you're seeing this line shortened, reverse type of situation as they go on the road, is because South Carolina is the better team here, folks. Let's just face it. And you're getting him as a dog. That is what is making this the best. Not only will I take the plus 2.5 for insurance, I will sprinkle on the money line because I know South Carolina is going to win this game and kind of put themselves in the conversation of getting into the playoff at the end of the season. So give me South Carolina plus 2.5. Sprinkle a little money line on for some action on that one as the play.
Disagree. I think South Carolina wins the game 100%. Give a shout out to our guys in the chat. Ben Rash, happy Thanksgiving. Sending you guys all the best vibes. Have a beautiful night. Be safe out there. But don't forget to enjoy your damn life. And, of course, our guys Bruno Moreira in Portugal and Justin McAlee. We see you across the internet spreading great vibes, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great night. Stay in course here. A bunch of more plays as we continue this conversation. 12 o'clock on Saturday, more Sunbelt football. Taking another under. Going right back to where I went last week, an under involving ULM, the Warhawks, taking an under this week at 48.5. And really just a nice buy, continue to buy low on this team. This team did start 3-0 versus the home under. They're actually 0-2 last two, couple overs against Southern Miss in conference and Texas State. But key point, Southern Miss and Texas State do not play a lot of defense and really do play wide open games consistently. So that wasn't really so much of a snapshot to ULM regressing northward in their ability to score. That was opponent-centric. And as I mentioned in the other total, there was a quarterback change that did shift upward movement for a previous team. We saw a quarterback change here for ULM midseason to sophomore Aiden Armenta. Not exactly a household name in this country. I had to do a little research earlier when I was capping this. But since he started this year, ULM is only averaging 18 points per game in his starts outside of the game against USM. And as I mentioned, USM is probably the worst team in the Sun Belt, so throw that out. They're just not scoring the ball efficiently with this young quarterback. And you go to the Louisiana side of this game. Louisiana is actually 3-1 versus the road under versus Power 5 schools. They did go over last week. I think a very nice little sell high here. 51-30 last week at home against Troy. Now they got to go on the road. And this is the third year these teams have matched up in a row. All my spots are data abundant this week as we are in the back half of the season. A couple of years ago, last time Louisiana did travel to Monroe on the road. Very low scoring game. And I think very noteworthy as to how the travel affects Louisiana here. 21-17 ULM, under 49.5. Last year, ULM traveling on the road, 52-21 Louisiana, over 53.5. So books knew it was going to go that direction on the road for ULM with no defense. Now they're moving it back down to 49.5. I think we're going to see a similar game to how we saw in 2022. As I said, 21-17. Low scoring game coming here on Saturday by the under at 48.5. Staying course on Saturday, going back to the gun. Florida International, I believe somewhere in the Miami region, laying a pretty hefty 8.5 points. Should tell you a pretty good story there. We're talking about some notoriously awful teams in the MAC. FIU in recent history has been lacking service, to put it mildly. But this line suggests massive upward movement. GunzPicks, FIU, minus 8.5.
Yeah, you said it right. It is in Miami. It's Middle Tennessee versus FIU at Pitbull Stadium. I wonder if there's going to be any Rangata playing in there. Shout out to Pitbull on that one. 2 p.m. is going to be the kick on Saturday for this one, and you have a FIU team back-to-back losses. 0-point differential, minus 31 net yard average on the year, but they're playing a Middle Tennessee State, also off back-to-back losses. But they're 3-8 on the year with a minus 16-point differential, minus 99 net yard average. Definitely a worse team than FIU. But Middle Tennessee, one of the worst teams in college football statistically. They're 128th in offensive scoring, only putting up 16.1 points per game. And they're also 116th in opposing scoring, giving up 35.1 points per game to their opponents. And Middle Tennessee is 123rd in opposing yards per game, 123rd in yards per play to their opponents, and 132nd in opposing third down percentage. And then FIU isn't great overall, but much better than Middle Tennessee in most statistical categories, especially at home. Because when you look at FIU at home, they have a plus 11-point differential, plus 13 net yard average, and they're 4-1 ATS at home this season. So they perform well in Miami. For that matter. And then FIU is off a bad loss. They lost to Kennesaw State last week. One of the worst teams in college football. We talked about them when we talked about Liberty, 27-26 after losing to Jacksonville State the week prior by only 3 points. And Jacksonville State is one of the best teams in the Conference USA. It's also a revenge factor with FIU. This is what I like about this game because the line correlation tells you a story. They lost at Middle Tennessee last season as 10.5-point road dogs. They lost 40-6. They got absolutely demolished. Now FIU is an 8.5-point favorite the next season. I mean, come on, guys. We know this is line functionality to its highest level here. I think FIU just has the revenge. They're going against a very bad Middle Tennessee State team that is 3-8 on the year. They don't care about this game. They have a minus 22-point differential on the road, and a minus 14-point differential versus conference opponents. This tells you everything you need to know. FIU is going to thump this team, and it is my biggest play of the week. Give me FIU minus 8.5 as a play.
Yeah, I was just doing some math in my head. Line functionality would suggest a 25-point victory there based on that 10.5, 8.5 gap. I think you're going to see margin victory. I might jump on that as well. And surely this is the type of thing where we're doing the show. We could argue there's probably 15 to 20 great spots on this board this week easily. And, of course, the gun has been firing at a historic rate all month with all these plays. Staying course with potentially another blowout. Speaking of 25-point margins, taking Army in the first half, back at home in West Point, minus 3.5. And, you know, we said it last week on the show. Guns had it officially. Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium, heat check for Notre Dame. Basically a spot to fade Army, where Army had not really had any quality check all year. And Notre Dame absolutely lit them up. But now they get to come back home to where Army has been absolutely fantastic this year in the first half at Michie Stadium in West Point. 3 unique home games with Bryson Daly at quarterback. And I was looking at that and I saw Bryson Daly, ex-NBA player, anecdotal, but 3 starts, 3 first halves. Week 4 against Rice, 28-0 first half, absolute blowout. Week 7 against UAB, 34-3 first half. And week 8 against ECU, 24-0 first half. When this quarterback plays at home, they are absolutely elite. And you get a great spot to fade UTSA. UTSA is coming off of 3 straight home wins. They haven't played a road game since late October. They've gotten into a really nice flow playing at the Alamo Dome down in San Antonio. They're 3-0 ATS in the first half in those 3 games. So they're way too hot in the first half. They're comfortable at home. They got to go on the road for their last game of the season outdoors in New York against an angry Army team. And final point on this, FanDuel line split, which is what I really look at when I look at the proportion and the weighting of these lines, first half versus game. FanDuel had the opening line here for the first half at -4.5 on a -6.5 game. That is 69.2%. It's incredibly heavy. It's a great spot. It's like we said with the Vanderbilt spot. This could absolutely be a multi-unit play. Take Army in the first half at -3.5 and let's dominate. Throwing it back to the gun, 6 o'clock, more Sun Belt football. You know, the intrigue over the years as we segue into the sharpest possible environments. We love the Sun Belt. We love the Mountain West. We love some of these smaller conferences. And here we are in week 14, just firing the board in the Sun Belt, taking Georgia Southern at home on the money line, -130.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you on that Army play. I don't know why I missed that in my cap, but we need to change the Sun Belt name. You know what we got to change it to? The Gun Belt. Because I own the Sun Belt. I gave you Louisiana last week as my best play, and now I got another play with App State versus Georgia Southern in Allen E. Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, GA. At 6 p.m. is going to be the kick. So we give you a little evening play here, and you have Georgia Southern that is off a nice little win versus Coastal Carolina, and they're 7-4 in the year with a 0-point differential, -76 net yard average. How is this team winning games? They're doing it because they're going against an App State team that is off a big win themselves versus JMU at home. They're 5-5 on the year with a -6-point differential, +5 net yard average. But Georgia Southern, pass-oriented team. They're 27th in pass play percentage, 34th in pass completion percentage, and they're 40th in passing yards per game. They're going against an App State defense, well, vulnerable in both sides of the ball, whether it be the run or the pass. They're 119th in opposing scoring, 111th in opposing yards per game, and they're 23rd in opposing rush yards per carry and 113th in opposing yards per game. And on the passing side, they're 132nd in opposing pass completion percentage, 119th in opposing yards per play, and 73rd in opposing yards per game. What I'm telling you is bad defense from App State this season. And their offense, while it has been successful over the years, not so great this season. They're 116th in pass completion percentage, 71st in opposing and offensive scoring, 75th in rushing yards per game, 28th in passing yards per game. But when they get in the red zone, they suffer. They're 124th in the country in red zone scoring percentage. And App State has underperformed consistently on the road this season. They have a -17-point differential, -2 net yard average on the road. They're 1-4 straight up. But they're 1-4 straight up on the road, 4-1 straight up at home. So they're a better home team than they are a road team. But App State is also 0-3 straight up on the road versus conference opponents, losing by an average of 13 points per game. And Georgia Southern, they love to play at home. They have a +5-point differential, -33 net yard average, but they're 3-1 ATS in that span. And you got the revenge angle here with Georgia Southern. Pound of flesh. Once again, they lost to App State on the road last season, 55-27 as 9.5-point road dogs. Now you're seeing them as a short favorite here in this spot. Georgia Southern has covered 5 out of the last 6 versus App State. They didn't cover last season. So they are going to want this game a lot because Georgia Southern got their butt whooped last year. It was their worst performance of the season So that is stuck in their mind. I know App State is playing for bowl eligibility or whatever. It doesn't matter. What a great opportunity for Georgia Southern to go take out App State and not let them get into a bowl. They want this game bad. Give me Georgia Southern money line minus 130 as a play.
Yeah, segueing to my next play, you led me into it really perfectly there. Speaking about what happened last week with App State as a fade and a reversal. Last week, App State played a great football game against JMU at home, 34-20. And my next play is taking the over at 8 o'clock in Harrisonburg. Marshall at JMU over 52.5. And I had the over last week. And I got to say, I was not particularly thrilled with the outcome. 34-20 final, under 56.5. 3 points in the fourth quarter after a massive flurry of points in the second and third quarter. And it's just a great spot to buy low on really what was an outlierish total result last week. And also the entire campaign for James Madison. James Madison is 6-1 last 7 versus the under. But key point here, they are actually averaging 43 points per game themselves versus FBS teams this year at home. So when they come home and they only scored 20 on the road last week, they turn up their offense. It's just a matter of the opponent turning up with them. And I think Marshall is that opponent. I think Marshall is highly competitive. I think they move the ball at will. And I think if you really look at what Marshall is doing here, they're showing some upward movement in their road totals in conference. Started out 2-0 versus the under at Georgia Southern, at USM. Went over last week at Old Dominion with significance, 42-35, over 51.5. And speaking of buying low on totals within this environment, this is the third year these teams have played. JMU entered FBS football a couple years ago, and they've played Marshall twice. So it's the best information we're going to get regarding JMU. Both egregious unders. Week 8, 2022, Marshall at JMU, 26-12, under 48.5. Last year, week 8, JMU at Marshall, 20-9. 2 egregious unders played between these teams last 2 years. And now the line is moved up from 48.5 to 54.5. Books had unders the previous 2 years. They're moving it up. It's everything I said. Great over 8 o'clock on Saturday night. Take JMU versus Marshall to get over 52.5. Want to throw it to the gun for a couple comments on 1 or 2 games, which I know everybody wants to talk about. Obviously, CFP Knowledge for College is strictly a handicapping show where we don't go into the commentary on a lot of the games that people love to talk about. In future years, we might go that direction, maybe do a second show with more commentary, bringing people in and out, because we love to host people and we love the conversation. But I do want to ask the gun about one of the biggest games on this Week 14 calendar, Michigan, Ohio State, Saturday at noon. Ohio State laying really an obnoxious figure, laying 21 points to Michigan. Jim Harbaugh is no longer there, but I'm sure he's sitting in the Chargers locker room getting a little sick to his stomach. Guns, what do you think about this one?
3x revenge here for Ohio State. This is why the line is so inflated. And of course, you have Michigan that, has a little bit of a moral victory after getting one of the top recruit in next year's class in Underwood as their quarterback. They needed a quarterback. They went and got a quarterback. I think that's been the highly public thing that's been going on this week. So yeah, positivity for the future of Michigan. However, this spot right now just tells me that, yeah, we're going to be on. Ohio State's going to win this game. Are they going to win by margin like the line is telling you? I have no idea. I wish these two teams were closer. I looked at the total and I kind of lean towards the under on this one just because both defenses are really playing well, especially Ohio State has a top 5 defense. Of course, Michigan has a top 40 defense. So I think there may be some correlation there. And really, when you see a line at 3 scores for Ohio State, and then you see in the line sitting at 42, 43 right now, it tells you that they're not expecting Michigan to score at all. If they get 7 points, that may get you to the over. But I think this is going to be an Ohio State thumping in this game by margin. Are they going to get to the cover on this one? I don't know about that one because I think really Michigan's defense only gives up less than 300 yards per game, and they've really been thumping along in the last few weeks. I think this is more of an underplay. I lean towards the under. It's nothing official. I'm going to be on this one. I'm not going to take the spread. I just think Ohio State's definitely going to win this game. I just don't know by how much.
Yeah, I mean, this is like your classic NFL game where you see a total around 40 and a massive spread. As you said, This game really looks like somewhere around like 34-7 or somewhere in that range. I think that Ohio State probably does cover and it probably does go under. My final play of this week 14, 6 o'clock in Cincinnati. I talked about the Bengals before as they correlated to Texas State. Now I'll talk about Cincinnati times 2. We're going to be buying the Bengals on Sunday. Why not buy the Bearcats on Saturday? Taking them at plus 3.5. And when I first started going through this, I was actually quickly reminded of the last time Cincinnati played a home game going back to week 11. A game I did have Cincinnati for the loss. They did lose to West Virginia, 31-24. The box score might have been one of the most egregious outliers in all of Big 12 football this year. Somehow losing the game by 7 points, where Cincinnati had 24 first downs and West Virginia only had 9. You guys know how hard it is to score 31 points with only 9 first downs? The only way you get there is 2 defensive touchdowns and an absolute cluster of outliers in West Virginia's favor. But that brings us to a position on the calendar where now Cincinnati is 0-4 straight up and ATS last 4. The other 3 were all tough road games. At Colorado, at Iowa State, at Kansas State. Those were not expected to be victories. So you're getting a great buy low on a team that has a lot of quality and a young quarterback, showed it early season, got outlied in their last home game, and had 3 tough road games. Now coming home for the season finale at 5-6 straight up with 1 game to win to go to a bowl game. Huge motivation spot for Cincinnati here. And prior to that non-cover against West Virginia, Cincinnati was 3-0 ATS at home in the previous 3. This is where they perform well. And they do get TCU, who has been sketchy all year and unimpressive on the road. TCU does have road covers against Kansas at Arrowhead early season. For those of you guys who have followed Kansas just couldn't figure out how to win games early season. It wasn't so much TCU being amazing. Kansas just kind of handed them a couple small window plays for that cover. And slightly later on, a really pedestrian win, 13-7 at Utah. Utah is not Utah from the last few years. Under 500, second string, third string quarterback. So TCU on the road, not impressive. 2 road losses, getting absolutely smoked at SMU, 66-42, and a conference non-cover at Baylor, 37-34. It's a great spot to buy the Bearcats. 1 home game to go to a bowl game, a hyper-competitive team all year, a team that has improved in Big 12 play after really an abysmal showing last year. This is where they will show up. It's a great spot. It's a great number at plus 3.5. Buy it at plus 3.5, and let's dominate. That's the final regular season show of the year. I'm absolutely in disbelief that we're at this point in the calendar, but I will say this. It is not the end. It really is the beginning, because this is the first time in FBS history with a really legitimate playoff system. We're going to have shows every single week throughout. We'll have great plays and great conversation. And as I mentioned, when we just talked about the Ohio State game, we do shy away from some of the big games sometimes because they're hard to cap. But the playoff shows will be centered on all the big games, and it will be the energy we love to bring. My 7 top plays in this week 14, Navy ECU over Friday afternoon, 55.5. Friday afternoon as well, Texas State minus 105. Vandy plus 11.5. Saturday afternoon, Louisiana ULM under 48.5. Army in the first half, a hammer spot at high noon in West Point. Cincinnati, as just discussed, plus 3.5. and Marshall JMU over the nightcap, 52.5. The Gun, Bowling Green, Friday afternoon, MAC football, -2.5. Sam Houston, +3.5, 2.5 at 3:30 on Black Friday. Vandy +11, a collaboration, the only one of this week 14. South Carolina +2.5, FIU -8.5, and Georgia Southern -130. We appreciate you guys immensely for taking time out of your evenings all fall to spend it with us. We love to bring you guys the energy, hype, picks, and analysis. We put a ton of work into the show. We love to bring it to you guys. We thank you guys so much for connecting with what we love to do is share information, picks, winning energy, and top energy. I love you guys. I know the Gun loves you guys too. Guns, pleasure doing business with you all year. We'll see you guys in the playoffs. Guns, close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat, including Bruno and Adam Smith. Like Bruno is in a different continent and he's joining us here. It doesn't matter when we go live; he is on us. And I just want to say shout out to everybody that has joined us all the way through the regular season. Like Shark said, we ain't done yet, baby, because we have playoff implications on the line. We have tons of games. We have a 12-team playoff, which is so much better. So, like with bowl season, we have teams that actually have to care about the games that they're in because they're playing for a national championship. And shout out to everybody. We are going to have a Thursday live show that I want you guys to check out that is going to break down all the Thanksgiving games. Of course, the Extra Point show will be on Sunday as a pre-record, but join us for that. It's going to come out at 10 a.m. on Sunday, so we'll give you a full card there. And, of course, the Thursday Thanksgiving plays will be tomorrow in the morning. So I think we're going to do like 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. So go check that out. And also, I am on a 19-6 run. That's right, 19-6 run in college football right now. Join my Dub Club for 25% off right now so you can get all my plays all the way through the bowl season. Link is in my bio on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Of course, check us out. Follow us on at GunzPicks and Shark in Sports 88 and go like and subscribe to the GunzPicks channel and Sharky Waters Nation channel. That's going to do it here for the Knowledge for College show. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the bowl. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bang!